Who is the best receiver to ever put on the black and gold? It's probably not who you think it is. Michael Thomas and Jimmy Graham probably come to mind, but where do they rank amongst the best Saints receivers ever? Well, that's exactly what I'll be answering in this video. And by the way, number 1 on this list is regarded as arguably the most underrated player ever. Chances are, if you're not a Saints fan, you've never heard of him. Jimmy Graham. Even though Jimmy Graham was technically a tight end, he really wasn't. After being drafted by the Saints in the 3rd round of the 2010 NFL Draft, Graham quickly proved himself as the franchise's best tight end ever. In the 5 seasons that Jimmy Graham was in New Orleans, Drew Brees and him went off. He was a crucial part in creating one of the best offenses in NFL history, the 2011 Saints. Graham looked unstoppable, racking up 99 receptions, 1,310 yards, and 11 touchdowns. The thing is, this wasn't even Jimmy's best. 2 years later, in 2013, he went crazy, accumulating 86 receptions, 1,215 yards, and 16 touchdowns. As you can probably tell by this, Jimmy Graham really wasn't a conventional tight end. He was more of a wide receiver, and he brought this up when it came to getting paid. After the 2013 season, Graham's rookie contract ended, and Jimmy was such a crucial part for the Saints that they were offering to make him the highest paid tight end ever at the time. But Jimmy wanted more. He wanted to get paid as a wide receiver, and understandably so. That's how he was used after all. But the Saints refused. After an extensive debate, the Saints won and made Jimmy Graham the highest paid tight end ever up to then, with a 4-year, $40 million contract. Jimmy Graham remained strong in the 2014 season with 85 receptions, 889 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Unfortunately for Jimmy though, after that 2014 season, the Saints traded him away to the Seahawks for center Max Unger. During his 5-year reign with Brees, Jimmy Graham broke most franchise tight end records and numerous other franchise records. Graham made first team All-Pro in 2013, second team All-Pro in 2011, made the Pro Bowl in 2011, 2013, and 2014. And was a receiving touchdown leader in 2013. Jimmy amassed 51 touchdowns and 4,752 receiving yards with the Saints as a tight end. Selected in the 7th round of the 1985 draft, Eric Martin quickly became a remarkable wide receiver for the Saints. He played with the Saints from 1985 to 1993, a total of 9 years. In his time with the Saints, Eric Martin accumulated 532 receptions, 7,854 yards, and 48 touchdowns. Eric Martin ranked 2nd in franchise history for both receptions and receiving yards, and 4th in receiving touchdowns. Eric Martin was never fast per se. Actually, he was considered pretty slow. He ran a 4.65 40 time, but this didn't stop him. The scouts always look at the 40 time. It just never registered to me from a mental standpoint because all I wanted to do was go out and get the job done. Martin didn't have speed, but he made up for it with size, strength, precision route running, good hands, and a fearless mentality. He played a pivotal role in the Saints' first ever playoff appearance in 1987. That season, the Saints were 12-3, and Martin was the team's top receiver.
Hey, talk and cheat, man. Everybody commit to your man, knock him down, take it to the house, all right? Wedge, right, adjust, ready?
Unfortunately for him though, he was the only person on his team to score a touchdown in their 44-10 defeat against the Vikings in the NFC wildcard. Eric Martin never really got anything for his efforts. He got a Pro Bowl in 1988 and was inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame in 1999, and that's really about it. Eric Martin was an amazing wide receiver who never really got any recognition, but it's not even close to how neglected number 1 on the list is. Without a doubt, the most popular player on his list is a dynamic wide receiver who was drafted by the Saints in the 2nd round of the 2016 draft.
The New Orleans Saints select Michael Thomas, wide receiver, Ohio State.
In 2016, his rookie season, Michael Thomas and Drew Brees clicked immediately. He recorded 92 receptions, 1,137 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns. After that impressive season from MT, he only got better, way better. In 2017, Michael Thomas had 104 receptions, 1,245 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He He was the team's receiving leader by far. The Saints also finally made it to the playoffs that year after not making it since 2013, and they were looking good. In the wild card game against the Panthers, Michael Thomas had 8 receptions for 131 yards. In their divisional game against the Vikings, Mike Thomas had 7 receptions for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they were supposed to win that game, but we all know how that ended. But Michael Thomas came back stronger the next season. In the 2018 season, Michael Thomas had 125 receptions for 1,405 yards and 9 touchdowns, and to no one's surprise, they were back in the playoffs. In the divisional game against the Eagles, Mike Thomas had 12 receptions for 171 yards and a touchdown. I'm not gonna lie, looking back, this performance was actually insane. After defeating the Eagles, the Saints went on to play their conference championship game against the Rams, and MT had a disappointing performance. He only had 4 catches for 36 yards, but it didn't matter. The rest of the team was performing good, and they were looking like they were gonna win. No, they were going to win this game 100%, but because of the infamous no call, the Saints were robbed of their win, and MT was robbed from his first Super Bowl appearance. But even after this, Michael Thomas came back even stronger again. He had his best season ever in the 2019 season, racking up 149 receptions, an NFL record to this day, 1,725 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns. He was so good and such a crucial player to the Saints that he was named the Offensive Player of the Year, only one of 4 wide receivers to ever get this award. Michael Thomas's talent was unquestionable, and I think he would probably be number 1 on his list by now, if he didn't get injured for the 2022, 2021, and 2022 season. Injuries have severely impeded Michael Thomas's chance of becoming not just the best receiver in black and gold, but one of the NFL's most elite receivers. But Michael Thomas is healthy now, and he's ready for the 2023 season. Hopefully, he can prove me wrong and cement himself as one of the greatest to ever play the game. In 2000, the Saints signed a little-known wide receiver named Joe Horn. Horn had been drafted by the Chiefs, and when his rookie contract ended, the Saints signed him. They saw something in him, and his little vision turned out to be one of the best free agency signings in franchise history. In his debut year with the Saints, Joe Horn had balled out with 94 catches for 1,340 yards and 8 touchdowns. He stood as the team's primary receiver. The second receiver had 523, 800 yards less than Joe Horn. You could say that he single-handedly led the Saints towards breaking their 33-yard drought. Well, he did all the hard work to get there at least. The Saints made the playoffs that year and went on to beat the defending Super Bowl champs, the 2000 St. Louis Rams, also known as the greatest show on turf, for their first ever playoff win. A massive moment for the Saints franchise, and a lot of it was because of Joe Horn. After the season, Horn continued to ball out. In 2001, he had 83 catches for 1,265 yards and 9 touchdowns. In 2002, he had 88 receptions for 1,312 yards and 7 touchdowns. And in 2003, he had 78 catches for 973 yards and 10 touchdowns. That year in 2003 was also the birth of one of the most iconic touchdown celebrations in the NFL. Joe Horn pulled out a phone and called his 4-year-old son mid-game because he couldn't attend the game. His son JC Horn, by the way, is in his 3rd year in the NFL and is one of the best corners in the league, and funny enough, he plays for the Panthers. Anyways, Joe Horn kept balling out until the 2005 and 2006 season, where injuries held him back. In his 6-year run with the Saints, he had 523 receptions, 7,622 yards, and 50 touchdowns. He did all that in 102 games. He became the franchise's all-time 3rd in receptions and receiving yards, and 7th in touchdowns. Joe Horn is a Saints legend, but not just because he was good on the field, but also for his leadership during Katrina, where he helped the community as much as he could and brought hope to a city that really needed it.
You aren't one of these people that's just going to throw money to a different organization, and you want to meet the families, you want to go to the shelters.
If you got money, send it to the families that need. You got your body, the kids love you, do something. You go where your people are.
Going into the 2006 season, the Saints had signed Drew Brees and Sean Payton, and they needed some receivers to help them. And little did the Saints know, they would find their star receiver with the 252nd overall pick from Hofstra.
I saw Marcus Colston at the Combine. Big guy walking around from Hofstra College. So who is this guy?
Marcus in his rookie year had 70 receptions, 1,038 yards, and a touchdown, becoming the first rookie in franchise history to have more than 1,000 receiving yards. This was really the first indication that Colston was something special. The Saints that year won their division game but lost their conference championship. It wouldn't be until 3 years later that the Saints were back in the playoffs. Colston shined in the 2009 season. He had 70 receptions, 1,074 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns. But going to the postseason, he still balled out. In the divisional round against the Cardinals, Marques Colston led the receiving side on both teams with 6 receptions and 83 yards and a touchdown. Against the Vikings, he had 2 receptions for 22 yards, but this was really due to the fact that the receiving yards were split almost evenly amongst the players. But most importantly, in the Super Bowl game versus the Colts, Marques was unstoppable with 7 receptions and 83 yards. He was essential to the franchise's first ever Super Bowl. In his 10-year career with the Saints, Colston amassed a whopping 711 receptions, 9,579 yards, and 72 touchdowns. He became the franchise leader in receptions, yards, touchdowns, and broke almost all receiving franchise records. The thing that stood out about Marques was how consistent and productive he was. He might have never had a crazy season like Michael Thomas, but he was consistently putting up numbers for 9 out of his 10 seasons. But through all his efforts and all the numbers he put up, Marques has never won anything. No Pro Bowl, no All-Pro, nothing to acknowledge how good he actually was. And this was probably due to the fact that Marques never said anything. He never celebrated, he never smiled, he never garnered media attention because he didn't want any. All Marques ever did was make crazy catches and get touchdowns and then hand the ball to the ref. He is nicknamed the Quiet Storm for this reason. He tore up defenses and never said a word. Marques Colston as of right now is the best receiver to ever put on the black and gold, and yet he has never won anything except of course his Super Bowl ring.
You know, if you're an offensive coach and you have big ambitions, Colston's for you. Colston, he's an outstanding player.
Hey man, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you. Please feel free to like and subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about my list. Did I get anything wrong? Did y'all disagree on anything? Did y'all agree? And also, thank you again for watching the video. Have a good day and peace.